Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. So we talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm Ernst Jeffrey. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our video. It's been a while, but it feels like Groundhog Day all over again because the Kentucky Wildcats have lost yet another player to the Arkansas Razorbacks because John Calipari, being the new head coach of the Razorbacks, he's taken a lot of those players with him. And the latest addition, and probably the final addition from Kentucky coming over to Arkansas, is DJ Wagner. He is a player that a lot of people were wondering if he was going to end up committing to the Arkansas Razorbacks when he first entered the portal after John Calipari left for the Razorback job. But unlike a lot of his other teammates that announced immediately that they were going to Arkansas, DJ Wagner took his time and actually visited some other schools, and it looked like for a minute there he was going to go to Oregon or possibly go to Florida, but he decided at the end of the day that he's going to commit to the Arkansas Razorbacks anyway and still play for John Calipari. But I'm going to go over whether I believe that Arkansas should be done with their roster and if they have a good enough team to compete at the top of the SEC next season, and whether I believe that John Calipari has done a great job in his first off season as the Razorbacks head coach. Now, as I already mentioned, DJ Wagner took a very long time deciding because the other additions that Arkansas has gotten from the Kentucky Wildcats, whether it's been the high school players or guys that already played for Kentucky for one season, those players announced around a month ago that they were playing for Arkansas. It's been a while now since John Calipari made the big announcement that he was becoming the Razorbacks head coach. But I do think DJ Wagner was smart to decide, hey, I'm going to visit these other schools. I'm going to see what they're all about and use the system of the transfer portal, being able to visit as many schools as you like and take your time announcing where he was going to end up playing. And DJ Wagner didn't really have to rush because Arkansas still has a lot of scholarships available. They actually have only gotten 8 players to commit to the Arkansas Razorbacks since John Calipari has gotten the head coaching job, because Arkansas basically lost every single player from this past year's team after Eric Musselman went to USC, which is very tough to be able to build an entire roster through the transfer portal. And I guess you could say high school recruiting, since Arkansas got the guys that Kentucky had committed to the program, a part of John Calipari's great class. But John Calipari has said recently that I'm only going to go with like 7, 8, or 9 scholarship players per year. I don't know if that's sustainable in the future. I think for his first season with what he had to do, and you don't just want to bring in guys that are not really going to fit in your system or probably aren't going to help out your team all that good anyway because they're not good enough players to play in the SEC. So you only want to bring in high quality players that are going to start. But the problem is that if Arkansas suffers a couple injuries this year, they're not going to have enough depth. That's going to be problematic. And even with guys getting in foul trouble in certain games, I just don't know if Arkansas is going to have enough depth if the Razorbacks don't add any more players. As is, they have a really talented team because John Calipari, he's brought in all these guys from Kentucky. I think that they're going to be a very good team next season, definitely a top 25 worthy squad, and they probably will look a lot like John Calipari's past few teams at Kentucky that had a lot of success in the regular season, but once the tournament came around, maybe they're going to struggle to advance far in the tournament. We'll have to see. John Calipari has brought in a couple of guys that have a lot of experience that's going to help out these younger guys, and plus some of these guys are a year older like DJ Wagner, but still it's going to be tough not having a lot of depth. But let's get into the players that John Calipari has brought in. The latest addition is DJ Wagner, who has committed to Arkansas. He was a former 5-star recruit in the 2023 class. A lot of people felt that he was the best guard in that class, despite the fact that there were other good guards in the class, but he was ranked like in the top 5 to 10 in every single recruiting service, and most people thought he was going to end up being a lottery pick in the 2024 NBA draft. But as we know, that did not come to fruition because in his one season at Kentucky, he still put up decent stats and averaging around 10 points per game. You still would have thought he could have gone pro, but the NBA draft scouts were just not high on him because of one reason only. He's a 6'4" guard and he weighs 192 pounds, so he is a little bit undersized in the weight department. And the height, that's pretty solid, but still, we do know that schools usually say a guy's 1 or 2 inches taller than they actually are. Look at Bronny James. He was listed at 6'4" at USC this past season, but the NBA draft combine measured him at 6'1". So DJ Wagner, he is a bit small, especially for a guy that's not going to be a league guard more than likely at the NBA level, unless he becomes a much better passer than he currently is. But you see the big problem for DJ Wagner is his three-point shooting percentage was not very good this past season at Kentucky at under 30%, and he only shot 40% from the field. So he's going to have to get much more efficient next season for the Arkansas Razorbacks than what he showed at Kentucky this past season if he's going to be a guy that could go pro after his sophomore season and possibly be able to help Arkansas be a fantastic team next season, because since they don't have a lot of depth, he's going to be asked to do more than he was at Kentucky this past season. He didn't score in the NCAA tournament game against Oakland. Him, Reed Sheppard, those type of players did not show up in that tournament game. Robert Dillingham as well. And even though Reed Sheppard and Robert Dillingham are going pro because they showed a lot this past season that they're ready, DJ Wagner just has more improving to do. But I think that the tools are there. He is a very talented player, averaged around 10 points, 3 assists. I think he can improve on those numbers. And if he can improve his three-point shooting more next season, which he shot over 75% at the line, so you can tell that he can shoot the ball, then I think that he will be a big asset for Arkansas next season, and he still could have NBA draft potential. But Arkansas has brought in a lot of talented players, like I mentioned earlier in the video, and most of them are for Kentucky. The 3 high school recruits that Cal was able to bring over from that great recruiting class, Boogie Flan, Carter Knox, and Billy Richmond, all 3 of those guys are really talented. All 3 of them could be one and dones. Probably more likely that won't be the case, but I think there's a chance that Boogie Flan could come in and just play fantastic right off the bat. Carter Knox, Billy Richmond, one of those 2 is going to be really good, I believe, and maybe both of them will. But I do think that Arkansas' strength is more in the backcourt, because if you look at what Arkansas has brought in the transfer portal, DJ Wagner's a guard. John L. Davis is a guard as well, and he's going to have to be huge for the Razorbacks next season, the transfer from Florida Atlantic. I believe if Arkansas is going to be a bona fide top 20 to 25 team and one of the best teams in the SEC next season, he's the guy that has to play well. He's got to translate his success over from Florida Atlantic and most of the same stats that he had at Florida Atlantic over to the SEC, kind of like how Dalton Knecht did coming over from Northern Colorado to go to Tennessee. Tennessee was a really good team last season, but if it wasn't for Dalton Knecht doing what he did at Tennessee this past season, there's no way they would have made that big run in the NCAA tournament this past year. And especially with Arkansas not having a whole lot of depth, John L. Davis is going to be key to their success. But they have a pretty good looking backcourt. A lot of it's inexperience, but I think the backcourt will be one of their biggest assets. And then Adu Thero, even though he's undersized at 6'7", he's probably going to be the starting power forward. He transferred in from Kentucky as well, and I think he's a good player that still has an upward trajectory. But I feel that Arkansas is going to have a problem with depth in the front court, especially at that power forward position, because they really don't have anybody behind Adu Thero unless they want to play somebody like Billy Richmond or Carter Knox at the power forward spot. But they're going to be really undersized, and maybe Calipari will go with some minutes for Jonas Adu at the 4. The 6'11" center transfer from Tennessee is a really good player. Maybe you could play Big Z down low in the middle, but Big Z's unproven. Yes, he was another guy coming over from Kentucky, which I think's big for Arkansas to have all that chemistry of guys coming over from Kentucky that John Calipari is familiar with. But the issue is that Big Z is a guy that really didn't showcase all that much this past season. He didn't get a lot of minutes either, so maybe he'll be really good. But if he isn't, then you can't really start him at the center spot and then play Jonas Adu at the 4. And plus, Jonas Adu really isn't a player, in my opinion, that can play a lot of minutes at the 4. He's definitely more of a center. So Arkansas's rotation has a lot of talent, but I do think they need another player or 2, at least maybe a backup power forward that can play behind Adu Thero, or even a starting level power forward if that's possible. But there's not a lot of great players left in the transfer portal that John Calipari could possibly get. And he definitely went for guys that came from Kentucky because he wants that chemistry. And then he brought in a few guys from other programs that he felt could plug in and play in his system. And I think he's made some good additions. They definitely have a really talented class coming in. It's just lacking in depth, and I do think some pieces might not fit perfectly, but only time will tell how good Arkansas ends up being. I think a tidbit that's funny as well is that DJ Wagner opted to quietly commit to Arkansas over the weekend and will be going against the modern custom of posting his commitment to social media, a rare decision for high-profile college athletes in 2024. I feel that's hilarious because of the fact that really is it that important to announce on social media when the media could just do it for you and say that you're going somewhere else. I've always felt that the over-the-top announcements and the graphics that people post are a little bit excessive anyway, but hey, DJ Wagner, he maybe went the unconventional route that a lot of the other Kentucky players made when they just immediately announced that they were going to Arkansas, since DJ Wagner took his time and visited those other programs but ended up committing to Arkansas anyway. But he went the unconventional route by not announcing on social media that he was going to Arkansas, but you don't really have to. At the end of the today. We now know he's going to be playing for the Razorbacks. I felt that he would end up committing, but I was a little bit concerned for John Calipari since he didn't commit immediately. But even though he underwhelmed as a freshman, I think DJ Wagner still has a lot of potential, and John Calipari's done a good job of bringing in some talent, most of the guys from Kentucky, but also a few other players as well. But I think they might need another player or two if they're going to have enough depth and enough talent at every single position on the floor for the Razorbacks to legitimately be a team that could compete for a national title in John Calipari's first season, or at least be able to compete for an SEC title at the very least. But as is, they have a really talented roster. We'll see if Calipari has anybody else. But DJ Wagner should be the last player from Kentucky that ends up committing to Arkansas unless Groundhog Day somehow happens all over again. I don't see it happening, but he's a really good pickup for Arkansas. Definitely they needed it since they only had 7 players currently on the roster. Now they have 8, but I do still think Arkansas needs at least 1 or 2 more additions if the Razorbacks are going to reach their fullest potential in the 2024-2025 season. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below about DJ Wagner after taking his time, finally announcing that he's committing to the Arkansas Razorbacks, and whether you believe that John Calipari has done enough to help make the Razorbacks a fantastic team in his first season coaching the Hogs, or whether you believe, like me, that maybe he needs to add at least 1 or 2 more players, if possible, at this late in the transfer portal cycle for the Razorbacks to be an elite team next season in college basketball. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Follow me on Twitter as well. Link is in the description, and I'll see you next time.